Lydia. Hello, Lydia. You're muted.
Hi, Art. Good to
Oh,
see
good
you.
to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Daniel, good to see you as well. I can't see you. I can see you're on. But
Hello. It's good to see you, and you will see me in a few minutes.
okay, all right. Yeah, Daniel's calling in from the Phoenix area too. Lydia's going to be there, I guess, in July.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, small world stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see who shows up here this afternoon. We had pretty good turnout this morning. We had the first session this morning, and we had guys from Argentina and some other people. So it was a productive session. But we're still just getting the word out, and so yeah, when you ask the CEO of Daimler to come, with about, 5 or 6 days notice, it's tough to fit into a guy's schedule, but he's very interested. Clicked on the link quite a few times, as well as Jim Farley. Jim Farley is the CEO of Ford, and if you remember, Ford just settled a major litigation with a Korean company, and they did it I think by joining Avanci. But
No, I think it's not a Korean company. That's a Japanese one.
well, maybe we're talking.
IP
Was it?
Bridge. That's
IP Bridge was one of them, but I think it was Etri out of Korea that was also going after him. So maybe all the problems haven't gone away. so so I'm hoping to get their attention, because, as you know, the patent book is the most comprehensive solution of all of them. So yeah, we're expecting we'll give folks a few more minutes here to show up, and see what's going on.
sounds good.
So since Daniel, since you and Lydia are good friends of mine, you have to give me a personal opinion. Do you like seeing all this business behind me, or am I better off muting it out? Getting one of those background blurring things or something.
Well, it's good. That's why I haven't turned on my camera.
Oh, okay.
I don't
And
have.
yes, and you guys need to know too. Solange, our daughter, is also in Phoenix now.
Oh,
Yeah,
terrific.
I heard that earlier.
Yeah.
How are
Yep.
you, Solange?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just noticed that it's getting warmer in Phoenix recently.
Yeah, apparently it's hotter this time of year than it usually is, I guess.
Yeah,
It's
I got the AC broken yesterday.
supposed to be 115 this weekend, I guess.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Must be tough for you.
okay. All
That's
right.
fine right now.
Well, we didn't have a lot of registrants for this afternoon's this evening or this morning for you, Lydia, for this morning's session, but we're continuing to get the word out, and so we'll go ahead and get started here.
Hi, Lydia.
Hi, Pete. Good to see
Boy,
you.
You too.
It's so good to see everybody, really is. Let me just get this thing going, and so you can see this. Let's see. I want to make sure that you get all this up properly. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. All right.
Yes, as hard as I can, and I'll be joining you soon.
All righty. All righty. Well, like I said, thank you all for joining our depending on what time zone you're in, our evening session or morning session for patent books. And this is the purpose of this event of today's is to meet other people that are interested in patent books or interested in a more efficient licensing platform. As everybody knows in this industry, the transaction process in patent licensing is often fraught with a lot of conflict. And we believe that the fundamentals of a patent, which really involve a full disclosure of how to reproduce an invention, are important, but yet they're also overlooked because of the influence of, frankly, lawyers and money. And we want to get it back to efficiency. And we have lived through, all of us have lived through a time where music licensing has occurred in a much more efficient manner, with Apple Music and Spotify. And so we think that it's time to do something similar here in the patent licensing world. So we're actually building a marketplace, and a marketplace where patent owners can very efficiently market their patents and license their patents. And most importantly, patent users can, with a simple transaction, license everything that's out there so that they don't have to worry about getting sued again. And with our particular expertise, because I'm the CEO also of Teus, a company that has helped some of the major corporations in the world license their patents. We have developed a process for identifying the best patents in a patent portfolio. And so we deploy that process here so to make sure that people get paid appropriately. We have a demonstration site up here that you can go check out at your convenience. But this is not without precedent. We've done, society has done this in the past. We did it in sewing machines. We do it with electric utilities and water utilities. And we believe it's time now to emulate the model that is deployed in music with Apple Music and so forth like that, so that we can do this here in patent land. So anyhow, that's Pete, you just came back from an event in Detroit at the Auto IP show. Would you mind sharing with us some of the dialogue that occurred there? Pete, all right, it looks like you stepped away.
I think key things that people talked about was the fact that technology oftentimes has been a disruption in certain industries, and as a result of that, a number of different strategies are used to continue to bring out innovation. So those were some of the key things that came out. The other thing that I think that's important that we always talk about is technology continues to drive the market. So what are some of the strategies that are actually used or that you can use to minimize IP risk? So those are some of the things that I think need to continue to be discussed in how you bring people together. The biggest thing that I see and that I talked about too at the conference was that if you'll notice right now, especially in the automotive industry, people are really trying to figure out who owns the customer with all this technology going into the automobile. And the thing that I find that's pretty interesting is if you ever see some of the commercials, people will reference, well, this car is actually something else. They'll say it's, I'm driving an Alexa. And someone will say, no, you're actually driving a Buick. And you say, no, it's an Alexa. So who actually owns the customer? So those are some of the interesting things that I've found that's hitting with patent licensing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
What-
I want just, what challenges are you seeing out there in terms of patent licensing and this whole world of technology now?
Daniel, what have you been seeing?
Oh, boy. Art, it's really an honor to be here. I'm happy to meet both Pete and Lydia. I'd like to, if I could, maybe back up a little bit.
Sure.
And just let everybody know that I was engaged in PatentBooks fairly early on, if that's okay, Art.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And I have seen an emerging need for a solution really identical to PatentBooks. And that would satisfy a lot of the concerns and conditions that I think we're hearing bubble up in the market right now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Go ahead. Sorry.
Before I worked with Art, I tried to study the patent industry and I found it real difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a number of years in Chicago with Canon and a lesser period of time in Tampa with PwC. And in both of those cases, my role was to manage intellectual property as part of my management. So I could tell you stories that I probably shouldn't, but what I've learned is, well, patent grants are very unique and specific, and the way they're currently marketed is probably not the most effective, efficient, or productive. Would you agree, Art?
Yes, I would completely.
And what Art's tried to do is, through his long-term understanding of how the real business works, is he's tried to come up with a solution that de-risks just about everybody's perspective and gives everybody an opportunity to increase their revenue streams.
At the end,
The challenge that we have in the world of patents is there's really only, I think, one base of knowledge, if you would, Art. And that's from a purely legal litigation perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So patents, even though IBM was successful in building a licensing program that supplemented their revenue, they still did it through litigation, not through advanced innovation.
mm-hmm.
Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely was. Absolutely was.
So Art's figured out a way to transition from a adversarial litigation based market in any given industry, because as soon as you are vulnerable to patent infringement, you're out of business. If
You
you're
can
not, yeah, if you don't have Samsung or Apple's pocket.
Yeah. Right.
Right. I mean, most organizations can't bear the burden of a patent pursuit. And so what Art's developed is a much more effective and efficient way to convert the knowledge that's held within a set of patent claims into a commercially viable source of revenue over the long term without the encumbrances of the risk of litigation. How's that?
Like it. Like it. Boy, and
I hope it's recorded because I'm not sure I could repeat it.
it is recorded. So thank you.
So might have been a little more than you asked for, but take it away, Art.
No. Pete, what do you think the audience up at the Auto IP show, have they heard this message? Have they heard this solution? I mean, and what's the best way for us to get this solution to them?
Good question. Very good question. I think just really emphasizing that there's really a comprehensive solution to solving, the patent wars. And that all comes by bringing people together, just like we were talking about, just like Daniel was talking about, in terms of a better way and a more efficient way to transfer knowledge. And I just believe that that has to be put out there to the industry in the different markets. And I think the more that people hear it, the better they understand and the more clear it becomes how it can actually be a process that can help them monetize their patent portfolio.
Well, along that lines, I was doing some research here this afternoon, and do you remember? Are you familiar with Koch Industries? Charles Koch. Okay, or some people pronounce it Cook, but
Yep.
I think he pronounces it Koch. They have this group called Koch Disruptive Technologies, and they say they're interested in investing in numerous things. Brian, that must be Brian Hinman, I would hope.
Yes, it's me. Hey, Art. How you doing?
How you doing, Brian? Good to have you. I was saying, Koch Disruptive Technologies is now being run by the guy that used to run. That was Chief Intellectual Property Officer of Koch Industries, and he was a huge fan of PatentBooks. Okay, and so we're heading over there to Wichita, Kathleen and I, this coming week or so, and plan on visiting with him, because what we're talking about, Brian, here is, and thank you for joining too, Brian Hinman, just in way of introduction, he is with Aon Insurance, and he runs the intellectual property department in insuring intellectual property. In fact, Brian, I've got some leads for you, some guys in Spain that would like to talk with you, but that's a side issue. But the thing is, these guys, we're trying to figure out the best way to get the word out. We've got this TV show that could be used, but we're trying to allow people to get comfortable with this and just basically share the good news about this platform that people can actually deploy, for their own stuff. And we're trying to make it as easy as possible. So any of these companies can literally just come on and publish their patents completely free, and build the confidence that other people are doing it. And the other thing that's very, very important here is that in my meetings with the U.S. Department of Justice, the antitrust group, they coached me fairly comprehensively, saying, hey, look, provided you do not compel people to subscribe if they publish, make those separate transactions, then you're free of antitrust kind of litigation or actions, and you do not need a business review letter. And so, in fact, something also occurred that was also somewhat unique, if not very unique, is the folks at the DOJ referred us over to Suzanne Monk over at the FTC, who met with us as well. And she gave us coaching as well. She said, well, aren't you going to be favoring the patents that are in tier one? I said, no. I said, I could care less who's in tier one. The market decides that, and the patent owners decide that, because they're the patents that cover the features of the products that are selling the most are the ones that will be in tier one. And it's important for the patent owners of the features that are being used in the commercially significant products, police the use of their patents so that they get them reevaluated and put into tier 1, displacing other patents that might have previously been in tier 1, and they might get busted down to tier 2 or tier 3. But this is a very organic and dynamic process that happens on a continuous basis. So in fact, we envision that in the advanced vehicle patent book or the infectious disease patent book, that we'll have kind of a dashboard that says tier 1 patents are earning X today, tier 2s are earning Y, tier 3s are earning Z. So, that would, and to make sure that the big companies, the ones that need to take the licenses to this, understand that this is the most economical way of purchasing freedom to operate. And this is where Brian and his insurance and the Aon insurance aspect of the business comes into significant play. And Brian will be speaking about that here in about a month's time in our third installation, our third presentation here, because the next session we'll be talking about patents can be moved legitimately onto the asset, onto a balance sheet as an asset, because they're making money. So how else do you think we can communicate this to the industry? Because that's really, it sounds like what we need to do. Would you say so, Pete or Lydia?
I have a question.
Sure.
I think we were putting a major focus on the first point that Pete mentions, which is the monetary mechanism that helps promote innovation. How about the second category he mentioned, which is minimizing the litigation risk? I think that's the main reason for Ford to choose to join Avanci last week. And also the third point that Pete mentions, which is for the automobile industry, there are sometimes things can be more important more than automobiles themselves, such as during the litigation between Ford and IP breach in Japan, it looks like the end result for IP Japan got was not really any revenue. They may not care about revenue at all, because they were gaining I think that's a sales ban in Europe market for Ford.
Yeah.
And that IP breach company, they paid security payment of, I think it's 227 million euro to the court themselves.
Oh.
They
Wow.
paid for security payment.
Oh, I didn't know that.
27 million euro in order to get that sales ban. You see?
Wow. Wow.
So for a national fund like IP Bridge, they may care very less about revenue. So that I haven't checked the latest Avanci report yet, but I don't think they are ever interested in joining Avanci for revenue purpose.
Okay.
So for a company like Ford, if we are able to, having access to a national fund like IP Bridge, we may have a very good position to propose to them that we are in a better place to help them to minimize the litigation risk or something. But that's something I just don't know how we would achieve that if we are keeping our main focus on the revenue side of the business.
Well, you bring up a good point. Brian, I'm going to pick on you a little bit because you also were in an operating company that was that had a very active patent licensing program too. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when because I've run big IP organizations like IBM and Philips and Verizon, and so I've seen on the offensive side. I've also seen on the defensive side because I ran AST and I also ran Unified Patents for a while. So I think it's difficult from an operating company perspective to assess the risk, right? Because like you said, it's fully dependent on on the actual exposure to the relevant patents that are coming in, right? So from a licensing perspective, obviously you want to go out and try and capture as much revenue as you can, but that does not necessarily mean that the patents are have that direct relevance or that they're valid patents, right? So I mean that's where the poking and prodding comes in, particularly in today when their litigation is threatened, and companies the first thing they do is file an IPR because they want to see if the patent is really a patent or if it gets invalidated, and and then you've got the issue of validity or infringement as well. So it's there's some solutions out there, like I said, on insurance to help protect it. But, companies need to make that assessment up front on the risk side to really analyze any inbound threats, or at least being able to anticipate where those threats might come from.
Now, when you were involved in the AST operation, you were there right at the beginning, correct?
Yeah, I was the founding CEO. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How did you recruit people in? How did you build it?
Yeah, so you're running into the same issue, Art, which is companies want to they don't want to be the first one in the pool, right? They want to say, well, I'm going to join if all these other companies join. But with that said, I had 4 marquee clients as my board members. That was Kodak, Motorola, Sun, and HP. That were my they all threw in $5 million apiece to get this thing moving, and so it that became the core, and so that helped provide a little bit of runway. But you really have to go in with a complete story to whatever company that you're talking with. In other words, you say, okay, this is why this is important to you or should be important to you. Lay out that roadmap, but do the homework on the whole litigation within that industry, within the segment that company works in. And I know you do this, Art. Do a very nice job of creating that storyline. But that's what's compelling. You got to show, okay, here's the litigation history in this segment. Here's the level of the lawsuits, and here's the dollar amounts that were at stake, and and here's why it's important. And these are good quality patents that they could become problems for you. And then that really sells it. And then, but once you get a critical mass of companies that are believers and also that are adopters, early adopters, then that's and then provide them. And the other thing was providing an incentive for the early adoption, right? Make it financially incentivized for them to say, okay, well, if you wait 6 months, the price goes up, 1 + X or whatever. And so you really want to create that early adopter advantage.
Okay. All right. Right now you talked about having some lead clients. I imagine you probably had to do this pitching face to face, though, correct?
Yes. It was 100% face to face. I was on the road about 90% of the time, but I never did calls on WebEx. I know now it's a different world, and we're sort of faced to have to do that, especially internationally. But that's where it just there's no substitute for sitting in front of someone.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more on that one. And in fact, I'm super pleased that the quarantine restrictions on COVID have been released in Germany, because I'm thinking I've got to get in front of these people face to face in Munich, in Berlin, and because I'm thinking if I get 1 or more of the 3 German car companies, maybe 1 or 2 of the big German suppliers, the tier 1 suppliers, because I've already got active dialogue right now with both IBM and Qualcomm. In fact, I've got those guys teed up. But if we get, and I could do Ford as well. Go ahead, Daniel. Yeah.
Well, Brian, it's really a pleasure to meet you again. I think I'm trying to remember whether we ever met in person. I know we've had some contacts and conversations through Art in the past.
Yes.
I didn't recognize the extent of your background and history in the field, and I'm just a mere amateur. I'm trying to learn about all this from Art over time. But I was I was a middle-level executive inside of Canon for 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
And one of my roles was to complete a contract for a vendor who wanted to do business with Canon. And I was like, okay, all we got to do is get them to pitch their value, right? And show us where the benefits are. Didn't make any difference to those folks. Because at the end of the day, I had to schlep across the parking lot with a contract to make sure that Canon's risk tolerance was acceptable in the transaction. And a lot of companies didn't make that cut, even though we all wanted to buy and use the product, because they just didn't satisfy a risk profile for a vendor to the company. Now, they never explained that to me, but it was one of those things after 5 or 6 trips across the parking lot. I'm like, well, why am I doing this? Why am I going back and forth? What are they fishing for? And it was, they were fishing for what you just said, Brian, how difficult it is to assess the level of risk in any situation, especially a new, unknown upstart vendor and a innovative concept that nobody understands.
That's right.
So
A lot of it is, like you said, Daniel, it's education, right? Because a lot of these companies just have their head like an ostrich in the sand, and they're really just thinking, okay, it's not a problem for me because I haven't been sued, or it's not a problem for me because I'm too small, right? And both of those are incorrect, and so it's really that getting that education in front of these companies is important.
But I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the current, common forms of intellectual property actually do.
Right.
Because if I have my understanding right, really what a patent is, while it covers all one's rights of use and protection claims and all the details that it takes to get one, what you're really seeking is the grant of a monopoly from whoever the government agency is.
Well, that's also, and people, the lawyers will always tell you it's a right to exclude, but I
Right.
always like the poster child. I use a glass of beer, okay, because you can actually see the liquid in there, and I say, is a glass half full or half empty? It's actually both. So if you've got the right to exclude, you also have the right to include. And oh, by the way, little footnote: if you do the include, you can charge for it and you make money. That's a good thing.
But I think the point is the value of the patent is not really in the product. It's in the right to have a monopoly over something somebody might want one day.
Yep. Okay. Well, gentlemen and ladies, I thank you very much. I have to be cognizant of the time here, and this is we said we'd limit it to 30 minutes, and this has been a very, very interesting and productive dialogue here. Lydia, thank you very much for your insight and your questions on that and those things to focus on. Brian, your contributions. Daniel, your contributions, very, very valuable. And
Thank
go
you,
ahead,
Art.
Pete.
So before we go, any final thoughts or direction or words that you have, Ryan or Daniel? Final thoughts?
No, I think Art, you're definitely headed down the right path. I really would, like I said, a couple of marquee clients just making that statement. That's what it's going to take, right?
Okay. Well, I plan on being in Wichita, Peoria, and Detroit before the end of the month, face to face.
And I'm in Phoenix while it's hot for a while.
I think it's only going to get hot there.
Yeah.
Art, are you there next
here for a while? I am here for a while, and it's hot. So
yeah. Anyhow, you were saying, Brian?
Yeah. Are you in Chicago next week for IPBC? I think you said you're not going, right?
Yeah, I was not going to be able. They closed up all the slots for my kind of business, and Josh made it very clear that he said, Art, don't go trolling the lobby. So.
Oh, jeez. He didn't have to say that. Oh, that's not nice.
No, he actually did say that. He actually did say
I know, that's not nice. He should not do that.
Yeah. But
anyhow.
Are you going to be there, Brian?
I am going to. We're a sponsor. We're a gold sponsor. We always are. So I'll be there. We got a speaking slot and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, anything you can do to, share the good news here about patent books, feel free.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'll definitely have some conversations. There's not a ton of operating companies. That's unfortunate, but there's about 20 or 30. So
Yeah, yeah, and you're my friend Jim Malakowski would be honored at that one too. So, and a
yes,
couple other too. So, all righty, all right. Well, thank you everybody again. I've got to run, but
Thanks, nice meeting you.
thanks, Art.
okay, okay. We'll see you. Bye.
Thank you all. Thanks, Art.